Pearl Harbor and World War II, the effects on Japan. December 7th, 1941, Japan's involvement with the U.S. in Pearl Harbor was intended to neutralize the U.S. in order to allow Japan time to settle their problems with Asia over natural resources such as oil. Japan had been seeking this advancement and thought that bombing the U.S. at Pearl Harbor would keep them from intervening in Japan's plans. Japan estimated it would take nearly 6 months, just the time they needed to advance Asia, for the U.S. to rebuild their navy. The attack was planned thoroughly and was a definite surprise to the U.S. The U.S. was caught unaware on their Sunday morning, although their radar surveillance was available at the time. The Japanese planes were thought to be friendly and were therefore overlooked. The attack sent 400 planes and 6 carriers of Japanese artillery to Hawaii, killing over 1,100 men on the USS Arizona alone, which was hit more than 4 times and was eventually sank. Then an additional 1,300 men on various other ships and on land, leaving about 1,200 severely wounded. A mere 64 Japanese servicemen were lost, a major victory for the Japanese. Of the U.S. losses, all 8 U.S. battleships were damaged, with 4 sunk, all of which were later raised and put back into service as the U.S. rebuilt and surpassed its previous navy, besides the USS Arizona. Japan's mastermind Yamamoto meticulously planned and carried out the Japanese airstrike on U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. The plan, while being drafted, was referred to as Operation Z. Yamamoto claimed the war was inevitable due to the U.S. involvement in the world's global affairs. He greatly adored the U.S., and when he was living in the U.S. and attended Harvard, was very much in love with the land and American customs along with business procedures. He spoke fluent English and was torn with his memories of the U.S. at the time of Pearl Harbor. He, along with many other Japanese forces, were very intelligent and longed to be a part of their military, very different from the U.S., who at the time had significantly lower standards for their armed forces. The level of education and engineering that the Japanese used in their attack was significant. A special wooden torpedo was even crafted due to the lesser depth of the waters at Pearl Harbor. It was made of wood and specifically built for the shallow waters of only 30 to 40 feet to travel further and not sink. Operation Z was a true example of Japanese intelligence. Many things changed in the world after Pearl Harbor. Immediately following, the U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt sent any and all Japanese and Japanese descendants to relocation camps, unaware of persons with potential involvement. Consideration was not taken for any Japanese, even generations born in the United States. The U.S. quickly rebuilt a navy and other special forces in order to retaliate against Japan. The U.S. fought Japan in continuous battles, gaining islands one at a time until they were close enough to the mainland to send bombs from their newly gained airfields. Okinawa gave a huge advantage to the United States. Curtis LeMay, a general in the U.S. Air Force, was a key factor in the destruction of the Japanese and had a great impact on their weakening. LeMay ordered a special kind of magnesium bomb to destroy Japan's wooden cities. They created a firestorm so terrible that they burned out whole cities at a time. The fires grew so hot and so wild that they created sorts of vacuums that pulled trees and debris of all sorts to gain oxygen to spread. LeMay's attacks on Tokyo and surrounding cities could have forced Japan to end the war sooner, but LeMay was not continually supplied with the magnesium bombs. In April 1943, Yamato was sought out and killed for his involvement in Pearl Harbor. He died after being shot down by U.S. forces over New Guinea. Even still, the war continued. Throughout the battles, the U.S. and Japanese fought on regardless of what the other threw at them, regardless of the fatalities. The U.S. had something they knew would end the war, a means of total destruction for up to 2 miles. For nearly 5 miles, a better than 50% chance of death for multiple factors, broken glass and building damage for up to 8 miles. The atomic bomb, Hiroshima. The U.S. knew it was a matter of time before they were forced to use their weapon, and with as many casualties already involved, they were pressured to move forward. They knew if they didn't, Japan might. On August 6, 1945, approximately 50,000 people were killed, the number tripling in total by the end of the next 3 to 4 months. Japan surrendered less than a month later. There are many effects on Japan and the world due to their involvement in Pearl Harbor and World War II, many of which were economical or environmental. Reconstruction began almost immediately but continued for decades. Japanese customs of hard-working, intelligent individuals allowed for quick rebuilding of necessities and overall advancement within a short time after the war. The bombs caused widespread issues with cultivation and wildlife in affected areas. The biological hazards even affected the survivors thereafter. Japan was also affected emotionally from the war, not only based on the losses experienced, but on the Japanese lives that were not in Japan, but in the U.S. The U.S. alienated their own citizens for fear of espionage by segregating and moving them to relocation camps and treating them unfairly. For many years after this, the treatment was scrutinized, and all living that were affected were eventually rewarded up to $20,000 for the U.S.'s actions by Reagan in 1988.